All right. Good afternoon, everyone. The Secretary General arrived in Geneva earlier today to attend the spring meeting of the Chief Executives Board, which gets underway tomorrow. This evening, the Secretary General is attending the official opening ceremony of the Chief Executives Board, which is being hosted by the International Labour Organization as part of its centenary celebrations. We're very concerned about reports of airstrikes yesterday having hit a migrant detention center in Tajoura in Eastern Tripoli, Libya. 2 migrants were reportedly injured. The UN support mission in Libya, UNSMIL, continues to remind all parties of their obligation under international humanitarian law to ensure the protection of civilians, including migrants and refugees. The UN mission in Libya is also deeply concerned about increased cases of arbitrary arrest and abduction of officials, activists, and journalists. It calls on all parties to release immediately anyone arbitrarily arrested and detained, and reminds all authorities to operate within the rule of law and ensure that arrests and detention fully comply with due process. Also on Libya, our colleagues at the World Health Organization report that 443 people are dead and 2,110 wounded due to violence in Tripoli. As the crisis continues and the number of displaced people approaches 60,000, WHO said in a tweet earlier today that it is working to coordinate ongoing health services for them. Senior UN officials today warned that insecurity and armed attacks in the Sahel have reached unprecedented levels and called for increased humanitarian aid to millions of people affected by the spread of violence. Briefing UN member states in Geneva, the resident and humanitarian coordinator for Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger warned that humanitarian needs had surpassed available resources as violence persists and risks spilling over into coastal West African countries. The number of security incidents in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Western Niger has increased sharply in recent months, with over 150 violent incidents recorded in April alone that claimed more than 300 lives. In just 1 year, internal displacement has increased fivefold, uprooting more than 330,000 people, in addition to 100,000 refugees, and severely affecting education and health services. 8 organizations have appealed for $600 million to assist 3.7 million hardest-hit people. 4 months into 2019, however, the average funding stands at only 19%. The officials stressed the need to act now and fast and for sustained relief efforts. A press release is online in English and French. Our humanitarian colleagues say organizations in Mozambique are working to contain a cholera outbreak in the north of the country after water sources were contaminated and health clinics damaged by Cyclone Kenneth, which made landfall late last month. According to the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, cholera cases in Cabo Delgado province have risen almost fivefold to 64 since the outbreak was officially declared on the 2nd of May. About 500,000 cholera vaccines are expected to arrive in the region in the next few days. Medical relief agencies are providing tents, water, and sanitation equipment for a cholera treatment center in Pemba, which was badly hit by the storm. The World Health Organization strongly condemns continuing attacks on health facilities in northwestern Syria. Since the 29th of April, in just 9 days, 12 health structures have been hit. On the 5th of May, 3 facilities were struck in 1 day alone, including 2 major hospitals that provide secondary health care in the area. One of the structures, a surgical unit, was supported by WHO. 3 healthcare workers lost their lives as a result of these attacks. There are now no functioning hospitals in northern Hama, and emergency care is provided by only 3 surgical units supported by WHO. Close to 300,000 civilians are affected. As the conflict in northwestern Syria intensifies, WHO reminds all parties to the conflict that attacks on health facilities are a blatant violation of international humanitarian law. Health facilities must never be attacked or damaged, and health workers should be allowed to provide medical treatment and services to all people in need wherever they are. Deputy Emergency Relief Coordinator Ursula Muller is in Jakarta, Indonesia today, where she underscored the importance of cooperation between the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, and the United Nations during the 4th annual ASEAN-UN Secretariat-to-Secretariat meeting yesterday. Then from tomorrow to the 15th of May, Ms. Muller will be in Myanmar to see firsthand the humanitarian situation in Rakhine, Kachin, and Shan states, as well as the impact of the continuing conflict. In her meetings with senior government officials, people affected by crises, and aid partners, she will discuss how to improve the humanitarian response. Also on Myanmar, our humanitarian colleagues say that a complex system of restrictions and requirements for travel authorization make aid workers' access to many parts of Rakhine State, especially the north, very difficult and unpredictable. While the UN recognizes that there are security concerns due to violence, ways can and must be found to ensure that life-saving assistance reaches those who need it. In spite of this, humanitarian workers have delivered aid to 128,000 people in camps in Rakhine State. Our colleagues note that the government has demonstrated a willingness to better support aid workers to deliver assistance to those uprooted by the most recent fighting. The Security Council is discussing Bosnia and Herzegovina in an open meeting this morning with a briefing by High Representative Valentin Inzko. And then at 3 in the afternoon, International Criminal Court prosecutor Fatou Bensouda will brief the Security Council on Libya. An estimated 52 million people in the Near East and North Africa region are suffering from chronic undernourishment, according to a new regional overview by the Food and Agriculture Organization. The agency notes that hunger continues to rise as conflicts and protracted crises have spread and worsened since 2011, threatening the region's efforts to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, including zero hunger. More than two-thirds of hungry people in the region, approximately 34 million people, live in conflict-affected countries. The report notes that there are significant opportunities for transforming agriculture in a sustainable way, starting with improving access to markets for farmers, promoting investments in agriculture, the transfer of technology, and key policy changes that support a shift from subsistence farming to commercial farming. The full overview is available online. And tomorrow at 12:30, there will be a briefing here organized by the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights with Paulo Pinheiro, Karen Abuzaid, and Hannah Megali, members of the Commission of Inquiry on Syria. And then at 3 p.m., Lieutenant General Michael Lollisgaard, the head of the UN mission to support the Hudaydah Agreement, will brief by video link. That's it for me. Do we have any questions? Yes, Edie.
Thank you very much, Farhan. Does the Secretary General have any reaction to the announcement by the government of Iran on its decisions regarding measures that pull back from the Iran nuclear agreement?
What I can say on that is that the Secretary General has consistently reiterated that the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action represents a major achievement in nuclear nonproliferation and diplomacy and has contributed to regional and international peace and security. He strongly hopes that the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action can be preserved. Yes.
Sorry, who did you say was coming from the ICC?
You mean to brief the Security Council this afternoon? Fatou Bensouda, the prosecutor.
Any problems with the visa?
As far as I know, she'll be here at 3 p.m., so I assume not. Yes, Errol.
Thank you, Farhan. I understood that Secretary General met yesterday with, or the day before, with High Representative Valentin Inzko of Bosnia and Herzegovina. If you can share more details with us on that.
Well, they discussed the situation, which, as you know, Mr. Inzko is briefing the Security Council on, and that has been an open meeting, so you can see today what he told the Security Council. That meeting is going on.
Can I just quick follow-up on that? Sure. I saw what's going on, most of the speeches, and most of the members of the Security Council, actually I would say 14, gave a full support for Mr. Inzko. My specific question is, does Mr. Inzko enjoy the full support of Secretary General, number one? Number two, since I have the privilege to exchange a few words with the Secretary General on the situation in Bosnia, he is very well informed. Does he has his own ideas or so how to break this nationalistic gridlock in Bosnia that's going on for years?
Well, we, of course, have urged the parties in the component parts of Bosnia and Herzegovina to work with each other and to respond constructively through dialogue. Regarding Mr. Inzko, as you know, he's not an official of the United Nations, so it's not our position in terms of support for him, but you'll have seen the declarations of support for him in today's Security Council meeting. Yes, please.
Thank you, Farhan. So I have two questions, and I think they're always timely and important, especially in today's world. The first one is, it's a wide-scope question. What is Secretary General Guterres' attitude or official stance towards genocide and crimes against humanity?
Well, this is something that the Secretary General and indeed the international community are strongly against. And as you know, there are treaties covering genocide and crimes against humanity to which the member states have signed on.
Does it confirm that there is no expiration date on these kinds of crimes?
Obviously, all crimes against humanity, war crimes, and issues such as genocide need to be addressed and understood. Regarding questions of temporal jurisdiction, as you know, different bodies have different treaties that govern temporal jurisdiction. The Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, for example, has very clear markers about temporal jurisdiction and where it will and will not go.
And my last question is, did Secretary General Guterres mention in any way the first genocide of 20th century Armenian genocide during this time period? Thank you.
Well, what we can say about that is, of course, we understand that commemorating and remembering tragic events in history and continuing to deepen the historical understanding about what happened should strengthen our collective determination for prevention. We at the United Nations need to continue all our efforts to prevent conflict and human suffering where possible, not only for our generation, but also for the youth of today, so that our generations of the future can live in peace. Yes, James.
Staying with war crimes or possible war crimes, the bombardment in Idlib continues. Two questions. Does the UN now have any more information of who is responsible for the sustained attack, particularly on medical facilities? And from the UN's perspective, what is at stake in Idlib, given that this is the last de-escalation zone and all the other de-escalation zones there was no de-escalation, and that the people were attacked there, and many of the people were removed and relocated in Idlib?
We've made very clear that de-escalation zones need to be meaningful entities in which people can feel safe. This has been a recurring problem that we've raised over and over again over the conflict in Syria, and we are raising it now. You'll have seen the statement from the Secretary General on Sunday, and we continue to refer back to that. I just read, as you know, from the World Health Organization about its concerns regarding the attacks on medical facilities. We do not have an investigative capacity that would allow us to pinpoint the culprits of these specific acts, but we have made our views known to all the parties, and obviously we take all violations of international humanitarian law and human rights law very seriously. Yes, Sylvia.
Thank you, Farhan. Follow up on the Syrian subject. Do you know that the villages next to Hama, there are a big community, Christian community, they are shelling the Christians there. Do you have any idea about it, and do you have any reaction on that?
We, of course, have been concerned about the shelling of all the areas around Idlib and Hama that we've been mentioning in recent days, and this is no exception. Obviously, we want all these attacks to cease, and we want the targeting of any civilians, regardless of their religious or ethnic status, to be halted. Again, these de-escalation zones need to be meaningful entities. Once there have been agreements to set them up, they need to be abided by all parties, and we have made our views clear, including to those who are a party to the Astana understandings. Yes, please.
Hey, it's Ruan from Xinhua News Agency. The U.S. House of Representatives on Tuesday approved the Taiwan Assurance Act of 2019, which supports Taiwan increasing its defense spending. The legislation also notes Washington should conduct regular sales and defense articles to Taiwan and back its participation in international organizations. And China on Wednesday said this legislation interferes with China's internal affairs, harms China's sovereignty and security interests. So does the SG have any comments on this issue?
We would have no comment on this particular issue. As you know, the UN continues to support a one China policy in accordance with the relevant resolutions, including the 1971 resolution of the General Assembly. Yes, please. Nikos.
Thank you, Farhan. My question is regarding Turkish announced intentions to illegally begin offshore drilling operations in the Republic Cyprus Economic Zone. Please allow me to use the United States wording. Actually, the United States expressed their concern by Turkey's announced intentions to illegally begin offshore drilling operations in the Republic of Cyprus Exclusive Economic Zone. They called this a provocative action and urged Turkish authorities to halt these operations. On the other hand, the Secretary General has only urged for efforts to be made to reduce tensions. My question, President Anastasiadis called this a second invasion and asked the United Nations to interfere in order to stop the Turkish violations. What actions have been taken by the United Nations to halt the second invasion by Turkey? After 1974.
Thanks for your question. We've been following up with our colleagues, and I'll try to get back to you on this probably by tomorrow. Yes, Maria Carmen.
Thank you. Farhan, we know that the Cuban ambassador met on Monday with the Secretary General. Is there any readout? Steph said he would get something for us yesterday.
There was some discussion by the ambassador concerning the Helms-Burton Act, and so the Secretary General heard from the ambassador on that. Yes, please.
Thank you, Farhan. Could you please ask Fatou Bensouda whether if she would stop at the stakeout mic so that we can talk to her about Libya and also about her trip here?
Okay. Yes, we'll reach out to her and see whether she's willing to do that. Yes, Evelyn.
I know I've asked this before of Steph, but it's in Idlib. It's pretty clear from every piece of reporting that it's Syria, backed by Russia, who is bombing the health clinics and so forth. Why can't the U.S. protest against, the UN protest and mention these countries by name?
Well, like I said, we don't have an investigative capacity to say this conclusively. We are as aware as you are of the media coverage of this issue. And you'll have seen what we've said, and this is a message that we're giving out to all the parties. But we are not able to make a determination on our own expertise. Yes, Mr. Abadi.
Thank you, Farhan. There are very important elections taking place today in South Africa. Is the UN acting as observer there?
No, I don't. We're not observers to that election, but I'll check to see whether we have some other type of advisory role. Yes.
Thank you. It's a follow-up. Is there any reaction from the Secretary General regarding this meeting on Monday with the Cuban ambassador?
Well, like I said, it was basically a discussion. So that's what I have for you on that. And with that, I bid you all a good afternoon.